So when I was asked to speak, Linda asked me if I would come speak this year. She saw a presentation I did last year and asked me if I would come speak about the Wabash River. And the Wabash River is, part of a larger river system in the state of Indiana. The Wabash is the keystone of our rivers, but there's more to it than that. And so what I want to do as I go through this presentation, I hope to cover just a few things. One, I want to show you some interesting things, at least what I think are interesting, below the surface of our rivers and streams. I then want to show you some problems and some issues that are going on with our rivers. And then at least one of the solutions that we're trying to work on through the Nature Conservancy to address one of the problems that exist out there. And then I'll just give you a brief overview of the Nature Conservancy as well. When you look at a forest, you see a lot of what is there. You see trees and you see birds. You hear them, you see them, and you get a perspective on what's in a forest. Same thing for a prairie or grassland. You see the big expanse, you can hear the birds, you see animals that are out there. But when you look at a river, we can't see what is in that river. It's not our habitat. We don't share that habitat. And so it's hard to know what is beneath there. So if you were to walk over here to the edge of the Wabash River and to look at it, you wouldn't really know what's going on underneath there. And so there are some really fascinating things going on. And so I want to show you a glimpse into what is happening underneath the surface of the water. Now, despite Indiana being somewhat abundant in water, except for this summer, there is not very much water on this planet. It is said that this planet is 70 to 80% covered by water. That is a deceptive fact. That is deceptive. The actual volume of water on this planet is very low. It is very small. And so I found this graphic that illustrates the volume of water that exists on this planet. And that's it.
My goodness. Really?
That is it. If you were to roll together into a ball all of the fresh water, salt water, and ice on this planet, that would be it. Right there. Because the oceans are relatively shallow. Compared to the size of the Earth, the oceans are shallow. And so when you roll it together, it's about like that. It's a bit smaller than the size of our moon. There's really not much water out there on this planet. So what we have, we need to take care of, and we need to protect. The Wabash River is, you all see it more than anybody else in the state sees it. It's a large river. And it's hard to appreciate it when you're somewhere else in the state, but down here you get such a good perspective on the thing. It's very large. It extends from here all the way up into Ohio. The headwaters for the Wabash is actually in western Ohio, where it starts in a ditch in a farm field, runs out into a stream, and then makes its way onward, draining, of course, a big part of, or a large chunk of Illinois as well. It's relatively narrow up in its midsections, although the terrain is much hillier through that area. If you've ever been to south of Lafayette, or in that area of Turkey Run State Park, where Sugar Creek runs into the Wabash and joins it, you get this much hillier structure to the landscape. Down here we get these wider rivers, huge floodplains, and these really interesting oxbow ponds, these oxbow lakes that exist not only along the Wabash, but along the lower White River as well. Really fascinating. Here are some things I just jotted down about the Wabash River. The river itself flows freely for over 400 miles. That is the longest free-flowing river east of the Mississippi. We have the longest undammed river east of the Mississippi. 400 miles actually flows without a dam or an impediment of any kind. It's really remarkable. It's much longer than any other river in the eastern U.S. Drains 33,000 square miles. 73 of Indiana's 92 counties either drain entirely into the Wabash or in part. So it represents most of the drainage for Indiana. There are 400 known locations for rare species or rare natural communities in the Wabash or along its banks. 151 species of fish. It's a lot of fish. And 75 mussel species. Perspective is everything. So let me give you some perspective on just one of these facts here with mussels. Eastern United States is the world's hotspot for mussel species. This is why there's such a fascinating collection upstairs here. This was a great place for the early naturalists to collect mussels. There just aren't that many mussels worldwide. But the Wabash has 75. The entire continent of Europe only has 30. The entire continent. And yet the Wabash River has 75. We are, in the eastern United States and our rivers, the global hotspot for mussels. And we're not the hotspot for anything else, but we are for mussels. Okay? It's a great place for mussels. So this is hard to see, I realize. But what this is a list of river segments of rivers in the United States, all across the United States, and they're divided up and ranked according to the number of rare mussels and fish that they contain. Out of the 40 richest river segments in the world, 5 of them are either the Wabash or the Tippecanoe River, which runs into the Wabash. So we have 5 of the top 40 in the United States for being biologically significant. Our river is rich. It is rich with rare mussels and fish, and with all kinds of life. There's fish like this. Okay? Yeah, she's happy for that thing. That's a sturgeon, right? That is a sturgeon. It's a freshwater sturgeon.
That's a lot of caviar.
Sturgeon contain caviar. That's right. And they're harvested for caviar. In fact, the population of these has gotten to be threatened to such an extent by people collecting them illegally for caviar that there are new regulations pending right now in Indiana to protect them. And one of the regulations is that what they have found is people catch these fish, the females, and they don't even know whether they've got caviar in them or not, and they'll take a knife and cut their bellies open, killing the animal. And so the regulation is being changed so that rather than allowing them to do that, they're going to allow them to stick a hypodermic needle up into the fish to draw out to see if it contains caviar or not. Fish can be released, go back to being okay if it doesn't have caviar in it. So there are new regulations going in place, but these fish will travel for hundreds of miles. They are a migratory fish, and they will move through the river systems and can go hundreds of miles. They can go up the Wabash, up the Ohio, up the White. They will go many, many miles. On the White River, the lake sturgeon will actually make a run when it comes breeding time, and they will run the river until they get to the dam on the White River, the lowest dam, and there they have to stop. And where they stop is where they spawn. So they will all spawn right at that dam. It will take just a couple of days, 3 days, and then they're gone. They run back down the river again for miles, maybe not hundreds of miles, but they will go scores of miles anyway downriver. Amazing fish. Would you think if you were standing out here on the Wabash that one of those was passing you? No, but maybe it is. And this could be under the surface of the water there. Now, I want to show a few maps here just to show you context, right? And perspective on things. The number of native fish species divided by watershed in the United States. The darker the blue, the higher the number of fish. So you can see that the Mississippi drainage and the Ohio drainage and a few rivers in the Alabama and Mississippi are the richest in the United States. So again, this aquatic diversity is extremely significant in this part of the country. And you can see that Indiana has its share. It has a very nice diversity of fish species. Now this answers a different question, and that is, okay, we know that there are a certain number of fish species native to these rivers, but how many are left? Are they all still there? And this shows you that where you get darker blue, that is where the fish diversity is still intact. So very dark blue is 100%. So if you have this color like it has in Texas, which we have in a few watersheds in Indiana, we have 100% of the fish species that should be there are still there today. That's a remarkable thing, to think how our landscape has changed, that we still have those fish that are out there. You can see we're actually doing better than Ohio or Illinois or Iowa. for whatever reason, Indiana's fish intactness has turned out to be better than those states. Now, what this doesn't say is, well, how well are they established in those rivers? Are they rare? Are they teetering on the edge of disappearing? And so this one shows that. This says that here are the number of at-risk species by watershed. So you see here, Indiana has a lot of species that are at risk. They're present in the rivers, but they're about to disappear. So they're teetering on the edge of disappearing. You see that Illinois, Iowa, Ohio, they don't have that. That's because their fish are gone, right? Those species are gone. Okay, the ones that were sensitive have already disappeared. At least we still have them. That's great news. If you still have something, we can still work with you, right? So this is great news for us. Now, when you think of rare species, if you're like a lot of people, me included, you immediately think about rare birds or mammals. Okay, you think about polar bears and bison, and you think about all sorts of things that are furry and feathery when you think about endangered species. At least that's my mind jumps to that. But when you look at animals by groups, this shows you which ones are actually the most rare. So the ones that are most rare actually in the United States are freshwater mussels. They are the most endangered of all groups of animals, followed by crayfishes, amphibians, and then the freshwater fishes. Mammals and birds are way down here. They only have birds only about 15% of them are threatened or vulnerable to extinction. Mussels, about 70% of all mussel species in the United States are vulnerable to extinction. Okay? Dark blue means they're already gone. Okay? That many species are gone for good. There are species that occurred in this river, in the Wabash, that will never be seen again. They disappeared. There's a species, for example, known as the Wabash River shell, I think is the name of it. It will never be seen again. It has been searched for a long time, and it will never be seen. Fortunately, there's still the Wabash pigtoe. That is still out there, and it's exciting to know that a mussel named after our river still is out there. So anyway, mussels are extremely rare. That being the case, and that being that Indiana has a lot of them, let's talk about them for a minute.